is a place.
No, no, no. Home is a feeling.
Home is my motherland.
It's more where you feel alive and inspired.
Well, I think we're talking about the same thing, aren't we? Home is where our story begins.
What's your story?
Homesick at Home every Friday from 9 to 10 p.m.
On Radio Van 103.1 with Ina MK
and Rena D.
Shot City. I'm coming home again.
Rena, what's your story for this week, Pat? Okay, hello.
I don't know.
Hello.
No, actually my story isn't that important tonight because we have someone who is here and willing to share his.
Oh, wow.
Oh, who is he? Who are
you?
Good evening, dear listeners of Radio Van. This is Homesick at Home, our English-speaking show on 103.1. And we're here tonight with someone new, of course, trying to discover his story of life. Aramazt Kalayjian, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Good evening.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I think he's enjoying the evening already.
Yeah.
Lean back.
It's pretty comfortable.
Relax.
Yeah. I wish I could do that right now. Hello, everyone. If you're watching us on air.
Hey,
yeah, by
guys.
the way, you can watch us right now live on www.radiovan.fm and also our official Facebook page, which is Radio Van FM 103.1.
And when you do, please like our page, Homesick at Home.
Yes, of course, definitely. Okay, let's start with our first standard questions.
Standard. Oh,
Yeah.
We have
And
to
then
get standard already.
Yeah, just a few of them.
Give us 5
Okay,
minutes
let's do it.
and then
Let's do
we'll
it.
start.
And then we'll start the abstraction. Okay, so where were you born?
Where was I born? I was born in a hospital called Nyack Hospital in the town of Nyack, which is a Hudson River Valley town, almost like a European seaside village in upstate New York, just 20 miles up from New York City. And I was raised in the suburbs of New York City for a majority of my life, for about 30 years, before I moved to Armenia in 2012.
Why did you move?
Why?
Yeah.
It's an interesting question, and I was thinking about this prior to coming here because I knew this would be the subject. As an Armenian, do we have a policy on dead air?
Here we go. We're gonna get a lot of questions like this tonight.
I'd like to offer silence sometimes to our listeners.
We're gonna meditate, I think.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be very interesting, I know.
Being born
This
and
is
raised,
what I've been told.
being born and raised in a country outside of the culture that your family identifies with creates sometimes a nurturing environment where you're able to cultivate your own cultural awareness and use that to connect with a lot of other human beings. Or it could be limiting in that it provides boundaries for your experience and says that if you want to venture outside of this culture, you are going to experience fear or the unknown, or it's forbidden. So for me, growing up, I was raised as an Armenian that went to Saturday school to learn the language, Sundays for the holidays, and all the normal things that many other people share. What was unique, though, was the way in which my parents raised me was to use that as a means to connect with other cultures. Or at least that's what happened growing up in America and New York. By the time that I was reaching my 20s, I realized that I wanted to go deeper into my own culture. I had already practiced the language as a means to manipulate my parents in my adolescence because anytime I wanted to go out and I wanted to experience what it was like to stay up till 2 a.m. partying, and when I would get in trouble, I would start speaking Armenian and Western Armenian, and I would interrupt them with asking questions. Forgiveness, I don't know. And they would
That's a good
and
trick.
they would stop in the middle of the argument and they would look at me and like,
And this
And
is
then-
what I'm asking.
yeah, exactly.
We
And
have
so-
teenagers hearing us.
Oh, great! So I'm teaching them
these are
how to
tips.
manipulate the
A
parents.
great
It's a good
masterclass.
method.
These are tips.
Well, I'll tell you what it gave me. It gave me the thirst to know more about my language from that seed. It gave me a thirst to know my culture more. So in 2003, I went as a volunteer with Land and Culture organization that brought us to Shushi upon the recommendation of my uncle, who had already done that the same program. And I stayed for a month in Shushi, and being there with the fedais, digging in the soil, rebuilding the hospital so that the water pipeline could have water, it was really inspiring to me. And with all these different Armenians from other places. And I felt like it was an international experience. And if I went back to the United States and I continued with my university degree, I'd have this way to bring back something, some type of applicable knowledge that I would have gained there after completing my university studies and done something meaningful here in a place where I would feel like was both home and a foreign country to me at the same time.
So it was an instant decision.
Oh no. It took a lifetime to make that decision.
Okay.
I would say it was I was predestiny. I don't know if that exists or not, but in a way, I had no other choice but to come here because I had been drawn here. The real reason, let me tell you, I was involved in something called the Armenian Youth Federation, which is part of the Armenian Revolutionary Federation. And it was really illogical to me to see all these people, young Armenians, talking about spaghetti dinners and going bowling and I don't know, all these like going out to the movies, not speaking Armenian. And the whole reason we're together is just because of our Armenianness, the cultural identity that has been given to us. So I was thinking like, what the hell? Why aren't we talking about Armenia, and why aren't we going to Armenia and doing something real in the country itself? You know, am I the only crazy one that's thinking about the country? And lo and behold, I kind of was, because none of those people are here right now.
Oh.
So, yeah, for me, this is the real manifestation of what was indoctrinated in us in childhood. And I feel like, and now I've kind of accepted my Armenianness or my moving here as a more of a human connecting ability than it is part of my identity so much.
Yeah, I understand. I can relate with what you were just talking about, because being raised in Australia, I went through all these stages as well.
And
it's interesting.
And right before we go on an advertisement break.
Yes, advertisements. Give us that money.
Yeah, I'd like to
cashish.
remind everybody who's listening to us that you can watch our interesting guest on air right now on our website, which is www.radiovan.fm, and also our official Facebook page. And before I forget, I promised to say hello to you from Steven Donatelli.
Hey, Steve.
Yeah.
Steve, what's up, man?
Yeah, he was sending warm hellos to you. Tonight is his wife's birthday today, so we also say happy birthday to her. And
happy birthday, Mrs. Donatelli.
Yeah, we'll come back after the advertisement break. Stay tuned. This is Homesick at Home.
Rena, make yourself at home.
But Ina, Yerevan is already my home.
But I mean Radio Van.
You mean a home within a home?
Homesick at Home on Radio Van 103.1. Join us every Friday. Homesick at Home.
Homesick at Home, and we're back here in our studio. So where is home?
Where is home?
Yeah. Where is home, and where is your home in particular?
Home is where the heart is.
Yeah. That was one of our mottos.
Home is where the heart is. Man,
So
why
where
you gotta
is
ask
your
such
heart?
tough questions? Come on, guys.
Where is it? Tell us.
Where is home? Home
Your
is here.
heart, actually.
My heart is here. My heart is here. My home is here right now. So the honest truth is my home is here, and I realized this actually this past winter. I took a week trip to New York, and I saw my family, and I love them. Saw my grandmother, and I loved her. I saw New York City, and I love her, New York City as well. but I feel like my home is here right now, and that's the truth. Who knows what it'll be?
So it
tomorrow.
can change, yeah?
Oh, of course, yeah. Home is literally where you are.
Where you are or where you decide to be?
And both and? I mean, now I'd like to put those together.
That's great. That's really great. Okay, Aramazt, let
Yes.
us talk about the Aramazt, the artist, the designer, the...
Filmmaker, the
Yes.
writer.
Okay. What would you like to talk about?
You tell us.
I tell you. Well, most recently, I have been juggling between editing a documentary film about Armenians of Ethiopia and
Wow.
music.
Hello, Vahe.
Yes.
Yeah,
And that's how we
Vahe
met.
Vahe
actually.
Tilbian actually
Yeah.
connected. Yes, that's true. So one story is about Vahe Tilbian and his journey from being a singer that is releasing his first album and his first music video to almost losing hope in a career in music and eventually finding his way to the stage at Eurovision. Another chapter of the documentary is about the historical connection of Ethiopian Armenians and jazz, specifically one teacher, Nerses Nalbandian, and his connection to jazz music in Ethiopia. All these famous jazz musicians from there giving praises and kind of speaking dreamily about him as if he was this father figure for them. And then the third chapter is a community portrait with short stories of the 70 remaining Armenians that are there now.
70.
70, yeah.
Wow.
So that's one project, is my documentary film. And that's the filmmaking portion. I'm also producing 3 different series of works of fine art, a series of 7 photographs that are taken from Armenia, and I've manipulated by weathering and antiquing with brush and different turpentine and different solvents that take the pigment off, and playing with light on the paper, actually, because photography is a play of light. So if you take away the pigment from the page itself and reveal the white, there's this play with light that you can do on the page. That's the neutral series. That's it's positive, negative, neutral, affirming, denying, reconciling. So that's the 3 series. So the reconciling, the neutral, is the photographs. The positive is paintings based off an experience I had in the wilderness, where I stayed for 28 days in the forest, and I fasted for 21 days under a tent without a fire. And I've been doing oil paintings of my memories of the experience from there on wood panels. And that's the affirmation, the positive experience. And the negative is dark collages that I've been making from different photographs and old New York Times papers and different elements that touch upon war and loss and forgetting ancient knowledge, and this is the denying, or the negative part of it. So it's 3 different series of 7 pieces, so a total of 21. I haven't decided yet where I'm going to show it. As far as design, right now my design work is kind of like for bread and butter, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just kind of making cashish from my design work. That's what I'm doing right now.
What do you design?
Well, currently I'm designing a brand and for one neurologist, and I'm designing a website for another neurologist. So right now I'm designing websites for doctors, which is really good. And I've been working with a film production a company called Disruptive Narrative, and I just recently completed my work with them.
Is it a local company?
No, they're based in Berlin and LA.
Interesting projects.
Yeah.
I mean, just listening to you talk about them, I kind of want to see what they are.
Yeah, it's strange
What
talking
connects
about
all
myself.
of this together?
Yeah.
It's strange talking about myself. I feel like I'm advertising something. I don't know. I'm not used to it, because I'm more used to like a back and forth in terms of conversation. But because these mics, I feel like I have to let go of a stream of
Well, you
words.
should forget about the mics already.
I mean, I can forget about the mics, but we got to talk to each other, and you guys are like all up in front of screens. There are these electronics here. I mean, if we were really gonna have talk, let's talk. You know?
He's right.
So what are we gonna talk about? Come
Okay,
on.
let's talk. Let's talk about your writing then.
My writing?
Yeah,
Oof.
because
So,
this is
oh man.
quite interesting to me.
All right. So my writing currently
Do you write
consists
poems?
of poems. Yeah, I write haikus in Armenian,
Haiku.
but they're only for Facebook.
Oh, wow.
It's the only platform that it gets released. I write. I've written so many letters over the past 4 months that I've amassed enough to put together a novel.
Wow.
And it incorporates so many different layers of emotions and places and thoughts and questions. So I never actually considered myself a writer. I mean, who does? You know?
Yeah, I understand what
Who
you're
takes
saying.
that step
Yeah,
to say
yeah.
like I am a writer now?
That's right.
And it's a big step. My father is a poet who would write kind of on his off time when he wasn't doing accounting work. And I think I just recently realized that I could actually consider myself someone who could put the word that I speak down onto a page.
When do you feel that you mostly need to write something down? When you're depressed or happy, or it's not necessarily you need to feel something?
Or is
to
it a
start
need
writing?
or a want? How do you feel? What is it?
Honestly, it's storytelling and communication. Like one of my main values is communication, but really it's about storytelling. Like I have so many stories. Like I've been in an Ethiopian prison for taking a photograph of a protest in
Wow.
Addis Ababa because I thought they were just praying. I have ran after a thief who stole my bag in France filled with my passport and my money
Oh.
after a trip to Armenia.
Did you catch him?
No,
Oh.
I was too big and he was too fast.
He was too
I've-
trained.
What else? I've put out fires trash can fires in New York while people were just passing by. Like these stories, these headlines, these outlines that you have of stories that are much more profound and deep, but you want to tell them, but they're only like our attention span is so short. I mean,
Yeah.
for fuck's sake, we have no possibility to
He
actually.
did it. He did it.
I did it. I'm telling you, I was gonna do it. We have no attention span to pay attention to one another for a long period of time. How often do you actually sit with someone for an hour and have a conversation?
That's right.
When's the last time that you did that? I'm doing it right now, but I mean, like, you know, we rarely make time for each other because we have this screening our social interactions nowadays.
The Black Mirrors.
Actually, Ina and I have decided to do this show because of this.
Because you want to connect with people.
Yeah, because we need
At least
to
we
see
have
each
an
other.
hour every Friday. You know?
Advertisers out there, this is real human connection that you can capitalize on. So buy your advertising time right now.
For only $9.99.
Or get serious. Mira up. Համեցեք խնդրեմ վերցեք հայտարարությանն հնարավորություն. You know, like, I don't know, what were the words being
I like
Armenian?
the voices.
Like Zangaharek ut in
No, but
Եվ
it's like-
ստացեք կապարիչը
It's like
in.
անվճար
գիրագիոն իսկական մարտարածի սկացումներ, որովհետև խոսում ենք իրար հետ։ Խնդրեմ, վերցրեք ձեր հայտարարությունը 30 վայրկյանի գարշի, ինչքան գարշի։
Okay, for these matters, you need to talk to Alona, our advertisement
The business
manager.
advocate.
Yes.
But seriously though, we very rarely have an attention span
That's
that
right.
goes longer than
Right.
like 3 seconds,
Unfortunately.
because you can see it reflected in film.
Yeah, communication in all sorts. Yeah, I mean the problem with the world, I would say these days, is that too many people are being bored, and less people are holding hands. You know, this is
Really?
like it's lack of communication.
You see,
Can
I'm
we hold
reaching
hands?
out
Can we
and-
hold hands?
She's ignoring
Of
me.
course we can.
You see that?
Yeah. Aramazt.
Yes.
What inspires you?
What inspires me is, honesty, a snowflake coming down on the floor. I don't know, a rose petal that has dried and is still maintains its beauty. The concept of long-term love and remembering your youth together with someone. I think, I don't know, what inspires you? Everything. Every moment is an opportunity for inspiration. Inherently, life is meaningless, though. Let's accept this fact. We often have difficulty talking about mortality and death, and I want to bring it there for a second. We all share the same destiny. I know this is dark. Many people are sick. Many probably our family members, but we all share the same destiny. We're all headed in the same direction, and it's definite. We all are going to the same place.
It's definite.
What is that?
It's definite.
Definite. I like that. Punny, very punny. That's very punny. It's definite. Yes. And when you realize that, when you by realizing it's not necessarily something that you dwell on, but you say wow, I can take this moment and really appreciate everything that I have. And then look at the other person and realize that they are also going to share that same destiny with you and appreciate them for all that they are. This is where the inspiration comes from. And as long as you have the ability to find a mirror to reflect upon that, or to find a way to remember that, because it's easy to get lost in the drama, you have that possibility to be inspired. So that's where it comes from for me, is realizing my own mortality in a way that is not with fear, that is embracing it with courage and playfulness and fun.
That was beautiful.
What the fuck, man?
And I'm sure we have a lot of ladies listening right now. Actually, you are single, aren't you?
Oh, it's complicated, man. It's complicated.
I'm sure that they're
Okay, what's
wondering
your
right
sign?
now.
What's your horoscope sign?
What's my horoscope? My horoscope. I'm a May 7th Taurus, dead center inside of the range, and my rising sign is also Taurus. So I'm very Taurian when it comes to astrological signs.
Taurus
What does that
go
mean?
really good with Libras, so
Yeah, but he
Sorry.
didn't answer the
Sorry,
question,
girls.
though.
Are you guys trying to hook me up?
Well, I'm sure a
I
lot of
told you it's
ladies,
complicated.
they were listening to what you were saying, and they were like, oh, snowflakes. Oh.
I don't know. That was kind of cheesy, though.
So-
It was pretty
snowflakes
cheese.
and
Come
then
on, let's be
death.
honest. That was cheese.
Well, they're wondering, so I'm trying to get an answer out of you.
It's more like snowstorms inspire me. You know, thunderstorms do inspire me. I used to walk out and just lay down and watch undulating clouds kind of go in circles. You know, like when they fold into each other. Yeah, watching old people climbing cascades is a nice
I would say
one.
you're a romantic.
Am I?
he is. But he's trying to hide it, probably.
Maybe a little too
Sometimes.
romantic. But yeah, that's what inspires me. Is the core of it is being able to connect with someone else because you have this foundational understanding of your temporary visitor status.
So all this, all these feelings, all these thoughts, the romanticism, how is that in Armenia for you?
How is romanticism in Armenia?
Yes. Does it give you more? Does it boost it? Is there an energy that kind of feeds that, or?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes it, the romanticism. I mean, the mortality, understanding mortality definitely, because I walk everywhere and I definitely get the sense that I'm very close to death every time I'm walking down the street. With regards to romanticism, it really depends on the person that you're interacting with, if they're ready to receive it, because there's so much play that's available to be had with whatever the means that you've been given, whatever your Jagadakir has served you, you have so much room to play with. So what is romanticism? What is that? Can you tell me a quick definition?
Now he's asking questions.
Yeah, I just need to know
we-
so I can set myself up.
I
to
was more
understand.
talking about the energy that we have here.
A romantic energy here.
An energy that kind of feeds what we have as artists.
Siro
This is
ka
one.
kay mi hermana. Siro ka akabay. I would say
Because a lot of people do say that and feel that. I wanted to see what you were thinking about that. Does it exist here? Let's kind of compare it with New York. Let's say New York, Yerevan.
love is the same everywhere. Let's get that straight right off the bat. As far as cities of romantic, I mean, we have like couples kissing in parks, so this is the same everywhere. So let's not try to create analytical barriers between us. What I think what comes down to is how you want to love.
What is
That's-
love?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I've adopted a definition and
Okay.
also my own principles. The definition that I've adopted comes from a black feminist author whose name is Bell Hooks, who is quoting, who writes, "Love is the willingness to support your own and another's fulfillment of their spiritual potential from their own perspective, whatever that might mean for them." So you are growing in your own
Way.
spiritual growth, and you are supporting the growth of another and receiving that in return. And this spirituality doesn't necessarily have to be something that is religious. And in fact, it's not. It's literally understanding yourself down to the core entirely and being able to give yourself the freedom to explore that, to reveal your own layers of truth, to unfold your onion layers so that you can see who you are and be loved for that, or to be appreciated for that. That's what love is. What do you think love is?
He's asking you.
She's gonna cry.
Me?
Me? Cry?
Me?
I'm gonna cry too.
Okay, let's
Let's cry
maybe
together.
love is crying together.
Can we cry together?
Okay, you
This is
cry and
love.
I'll continue the show.
So Rena doesn't love us. Okay, so this is the conclusion.
Oh no, it's not.
Oh.
Okay,
Oh.
let's get more practical here.
Oh,
What?
practical.
When did you earn your first salary?
When did I earn my very first salary?
Yeah.
Funny story. I was 14 and a half. And the reason why I say 14 and a half is because I applied for a supermarket clerk job as a supermarket cashier at a place called ShopRite in Northvale, New Jersey. Big up Northvale, New Jersey, specifically ShopRite. And I applied on my application. I wrote 14 and a half. And I'm a very large man, and I was a very large kid at 14 and a half. And they assumed that I was 15 or 16, which is the legal working age. So I applied with this application where I wrote 14 and a half on it. I gave the application, they accepted it, didn't look at it for 2 weeks. I worked as a cashier. And then 2 weeks later, they came and asked me, "Did you write 14 and a half on your application?" I was like, "Yeah." "You know you can't work here legally, right?" "Okay, so does that mean you're not going to pay me?" Like, "No, we'll pay you, but come back when you're 15. So they paid me. They paid me at this job that I worked for 2 weeks, and like I don't know, like $100.
Come back in May.
Yeah, exactly. My birthday.
Whoa.
That was my
that's
first.
interesting.
Is that a salary though? Is that,
Yeah,
Yeah, of
yeah.
course it
This
is.
is
Aramazt.
this is exactly what it is.
I mean, yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
miss.
Yo. Okay. Are there certain things that you try to avoid or you do? And what are they?
Yeah, I try to avoid letting things fuck with me. I mean, like, I try to
Literally?
avoid letting things. I try to avoid letting things get to my head, or get to kind of interrupt my inner peace, because, like I brought up the example of walking. I walk everywhere. I walk from, I live in Getron. My studio is in Gomidas. I walk everywhere that I can, and if I let every car that passed me by get to me, I would turn into the Hulk and smash inside of a windshield and grab that stupid driver from the neck and just be like, be careful, there are human beings that are walking on the streets. And then I would place him back in there. But because I don't want to let it get to me, I don't allow myself to turn into the Hulk, and I try to avoid getting to that place where my emotional expressions take the better of me instead of me being able to communicate with love and logic.
But how do you do it? Do you block yourself emotionally, or
No.
any certain exercises?
I take it with humor. I'm like, this is a funny situation. turn it into a game. If cars pass by too closely to me, I give a tap to the car as they're whizzing by, and they don't know if I've, dented their car, and I'm walking in the opposite direction, so they don't have an opportunity to turn around and come check anything.
And you don't get into trouble doing
he's
that?
Still
Not
a
yet.
kid, like every man.
I just turn it into I turn into a game. I shouldn't be walking the street like that, really, but it's much more comfortable because I don't want to risk breaking my knees on the sidewalks here, because who knows what kind of holes you'll fall into.
Do you have any stories about taxi drivers in
Yeah,
Armenia? Because
everybody
everybody
has.
does. Yes.
Let me tell you my stories about taxi drivers, okay? For the past 5 years, I've had a conversation with every single taxi driver. Up until this past year, I stopped because I had like so many conversations. Every single taxi driver I sat next to, I had a set series of questions that would open a conversation. And it was, what it is? Homesick. Homesick Korzeda. Or I would sometimes say it in even more like a Russian chanson style of saying, but it says Homesick. Inch pesitzer Korzeda. Like with a much more raspy voice, like this kind of
The
like
Don
Russian
Carleon
chanson. No,
style.
Russian chanson.
I know what he's saying,
Yeah,
Reina. You're a retard.
Yeah, I know. I went with the Godfather. I don't know why.
The different taxi drivers. I've spoken with. I had a taxi driver offer me a menu of songs that I could choose on a USB stick, so that I could tailor my musical experience. And it was because he was a musician who could no longer play because of his hands, and was forced to ride a taxi. I've spoken with a Russian language master's, literature and linguistics master's degree graduate, who had no way to apply what he had learned in the country. So that's what he did. 2 guys that were former champions in the Soviet era in sports, as a sportsman, in bodybuilding and arm wrestling. Several former soldiers who were really despondent about any potential future in having a military that could stand up for true justice, which is unfortunate because this guy served 30 years and left. I've sat with taxi drivers who are foul-mouthed, taxi drivers who are sweet and curious. I even once I explained the entire process. The taxi driver. I explained the entire process of what it's like to make love to a woman, from my perspective, to him, owing to his curiosity, and he listened. He listened from the moment that he picked me up and we started the conversation until the moment where the whole evening in my description was finished, when he dropped me off. And it was not like a dirty conversation. It was just about sharing information, because what I've noticed amongst men in Armenia is that there is no actual exchange of sincere information from one another, a revelation of vulnerability. There's always this veneer of machismo that prevents a true connection from actually happening. And most recently, actually, in the past 3 weeks, I've found these different men who are actually local, non-local, diasporan, non-diasporan, willing to sit down and actually speak about their experience in a way that is asking questions with curiosity, sharing to reveal the truth, and not with fear of looking like they are weak or not masculine, that to actually be the true masculine, which is the seeking after truth. So that's how we were speaking with each other during that taxi experience. So yeah, I've had many experiences with taxi drivers.
Yeah. That's why I asked, because usually people have like loads and loads to share about.
Sometimes to my friend's annoyance, though, because I'm talking with these taxi drivers, and my friends are like, "Oh God, here he goes again." He's like having conversations. Like, why do you have to have a conversation with every single one? You know, like, they don't all have something meaningful to say.
So speaking of vulnerability and showing weaknesses,
Whoa, what a segue! What are you gonna ask me?
men crying.
What about that?
What do you think?
I cry, man. I cry readily. I'm sorry that I'm. Yeah.
Okay, we'll think
have
about
no-
it.
Oh yeah, we need money. We need money.
We need money.
Please get us.
Take money.
Please take advertisements. Please,
Okay,
please
we'll
take out
think about it. We'll
advertisements.
cry a little bit during the break, and then we'll come back to our studio. Stay tuned.
Steven's gone. Rafi's gone. Rena, de asa. What am I gonna do?
Well, dear, that's the way men are. Maybe you should try a woman.
What? Rena, kezi çeraf.
Ina hangizdatsi. I meant as a co-host.
Vay. Homesick at home.
This is how we do it. It's Friday night.
It was just a suggestion, Ina. I mean,
Well,
you took
okay,
it the other way.
I'm still thinking, and this is. Well, I don't know. I'm reading right now. We have a one comment under our live broadcast video.
Huh?
Hike Gozuyan, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
says finally something worth listening to.
Oh wow! That's
I don't know.
such a compliment.
I don't know if he means our show.
Of course, it's about our show
or
and
he
our
means
guests.
this episode in particular.
It's 2 in 1 here, or 3 in 1 actually.
But hello and thank you.
Hey, that's a
Thanks
really
for the
great compliment.
comment.
Thanks for listening, Hike. I appreciate it, man.
Hi, Hike.
Okay,
know Hike.
if you're still listening too, you can ask a question to our guest while we're still on air for another 20 minutes. Okay, so let's go. Men crying.
Men crying.
Yeah, we can see your head now. So you can cry while answering this question.
Well, I mean,
We
I,
won't see
I
it.
cry readily when I'm moved, and the things that move me are all different. Sometimes it's loss. Sometimes it's like feeling misunderstood. So I think that men are humans and they have emotions, and I think that they should cry. I mean, that they can cry. You know, I don't know, what is the question? Is that the question? I don't know.
Okay, we were speaking about men being afraid of looking weak or
vulnerability.
things like that. Yeah.
Vulnerability doesn't necessarily have to be crying, though. No.
Well, yeah, not really. But if we speak about Armenian men, they don't cry that often.
Is that true? I
At
don't know.
least they don't show it.
Yeah, I guess, like men in general, I think
Yeah.
around the world, they don't really cry that often. I think it has a lot to do, I mean, I'm
with
going to talk about.
stereotypes, maybe.
Well, Bell Hooks, again, this black feminist author that I like to quote and read, she talks about how men have been raised in such a way where they have been forced to withhold their true emotions as a means of showing that they are an actual man, or to withhold themselves from society to be able to be accepted. So they've been trained from their youth this way. And I don't know if it's something that is accepted for someone to actually see themselves as having the need to share their emotions, because it's, I mean, like it requires thought and sensing and sharing and communication. And that is the vulnerability, is that you're sharing something that is in your inner world. And I don't think that many men do that. I don't know. I feel like that there's a lot of men are at a loss here around the world. There are these true masculinity that needs nurturing, because there's a lot of toxic masculinity out there that is getting a lot of airtime, so to speak. And the true masculinity, the nurturing masculinity, is is not, doesn't really have a space to play in, doesn't have a space to grow, or is just coming awake. I don't know. What do you think?
I think we need more men like you.
Thanks.
This is what I think.
Oh, more men like me and
That
like,
was
like my
honest.
friends. Yeah, more men like me and my friends.
Okay, we'll meet your friends later, I think.
I feel like a shrink here, you know.
You
Like,
do?
he's
Ask me more questions.
Okay, well,
I-
we were
he's
speaking
lying
earlier.
and just opening up,
He's
and
just
we're
enjoying,
here,
yeah,
like, asking the
we're
questions.
like a
and-
visit to a psychologist. I'm liking this format. We were speaking earlier at the kitchen, and you were telling about your experience of living alone, without food and only water and things like this. Could you tell a little bit more about this experience to our listeners?
Hey,
And
listeners.
how did you manage to
Hey,
do it?
listeners. So,
Hey, listeners.
there's a program that if you want to participate in, it's called Sacred Passage, and it's run by this guy. His name is John Milton. He's a practicing Buddhist yogi and shaman for the past 30 years, and was the first ecologist on staff at the White House, as well as the first bodyguard for the Dalai Lama. He has been living in Crestone, Colorado for the past, I would say, 30 years, and has been preserving nature and doing nature passages, nature rites of passages for that time. And with him, I went and learned different meditation techniques and exercises before going out into the wilderness for 30 days, or 28 days. So I stayed in the Rio Grande National Forest mountains for 28 days under a tent, and for 21 days I fasted.
Wow.
And for 3 days I did a traditional Native American vision quest that requires you to not move outside of an 8-foot circle, to fast, continue fasting, to only be wearing a blanket, to not sleep for 2 nights, and to have as little water as possible. And
To survive.
well, in a way, the intention was to wake up a warrior spirit inside of me, and it did in a way. I had never participated in any military training, and I felt that if I were to do anything like this, it would be as close to the extremes of what military training might be in terms of your physical, emotional, and it was more spiritual than military training, let's say that.
Very interesting. I mean, I remember you telling me about this experience once, but I've always thought about it after that, you know? I'd like to try something like this. I don't know what would happen.
Goodbye, Ren.
It's very
I'll
relaxing
be
and very
back, don't
calming.
worry.
It really is. It's very relaxing and very calming. Deep connection with nature is something that humans have engaged in for thousands of years, and it's only the past like 300, 400, 500 years that we've become really disconnected from it. The concept of fire as being our light, having to feel the different changes in seasons. And when you allow yourself to connect that way to nature and to honor it and to respect it, it's a way of you also connecting with yourself and kind of seeing all there's one meditation practice that John had taught us that was called the rainbow light meditation, where you see all the different body masses on the planet, mountains, rivers, lakes, and valleys, oceans, and you see inside of you, you connect that with different body parts and different systems like respiratory, circulatory, reproductive, your nervous system, and to have this connection, this deep connection between you as a human and the land that you live in, it's something that's very profound, and very it cultivates really pure awareness. So I highly recommend it to anyone that doesn't have to be 28 days.
I
though.
think we are meditating right now
this
on
is,
air.
This is
I'm
very
sorry, am I
interesting. I
lulling
told
you
you
guys
it's
to
going
sleep?
to be
I'm making you guys sleep, aren't I?
No,
Should I start cursing and
Not
talk like a
yet.
New Yorker again? Should I bring out the?
Are you afraid of changes?
Am I afraid of changes? No.
What would you change about yourself?
What would I change about myself?
Mhm.
Nothing. I'm already
Nothing?
changing.
Okay, we got two answers here.
I mean,
Choose the one you
that's
like.
it's the same. It's the same answer.
I know.
I'm already changing. I'm already changing. We are always changing.
What are you scared of, Aramazt?
If my basturma is like old, and if I eat it, I get like poison. You know, like that's like really that's the scare, because like you don't know what kind of packaged stuff that you're buying here. You know what I'm saying? You open up that stuff and it's like black and it's dry, and you're like, you have no idea. If I eat, it's like it's literally you're eating trust. This is huge trust. Like you put that basturma in your mouth and you're like, well, that's it. But what am I scared of? Like it's really, it's just nothing except for a painful death. Nothing except for a painful death.
Wow.
And that I think I can work through by the time I arrive to it.
What's your favorite Armenian dish?
My favorite, Mazunov Küfte. A shout out to my aunt Zarmine Horkur, who makes the best Mazunov Küfte in the world. My God. It has the meatballs with the butter inside of it. You guys know about Mazunov Küfte?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
It has the butter inside of it. You split it open. It's this warm, oozy liquid with like the mint on top. And then the red Aleppo pepper. And then you have the bread with a little green onion inside of it. And you chomp on it and you take the soup. And
Mom, if you're listening, this is what we're having tomorrow. So start.
so come over, Ma. Come on over, Ma.
Yeah, you should try my mom's.
I would love to.
Yeah.
Is that an invitation? I'm coming.
Of course it is.
Yes, I'm coming over. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure,
We're
deal.
doing it.
We have a collection of
Invitations.
meetings, and invitations pending.
That's right.
Aramazt, do you have any questions to our show or to us personally?
Yeah.
Forget the show, just us.
Do I have questions to you guys? I want to know. I want to know. Why are you here? Why do you do this? Is it
Here?
I was
Where's
jokingly
here?
like here doing this radio show because I jokingly was talking to my ex-wife Ani, who's 6 months pregnant, and I was helping her with bags because I just happened to see her on the street, and I was saying like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go do this radio show. I'm the token diasporan amongst other token diasporans who are intended to share their story and inspire others. Is this the purpose? Is it inspiration, or to see that there are other like-minded English-speaking people here? Do you guys only speak English on this show?
Of course.
Yes.
This damn, that's why, because I speak English. You guys don't even like me or my ideas. You just know you want me to speak English with you guys. That's all.
Okay.
But why do you guys do it? Seriously, what's the reason?
Should I go first?
Go.
Okay.
Because
Well,
you've
Is it
been
okay
here
that I'm
longer
not
than
looking
me,
at you?
so.
Let me look at you.
It's okay, but I'm gonna tell the story of how it all started.
Yes, tell me how it all started. How did it all begin?
Initially, the show was called American in Yerevan.
American in Yerevan?
It was hosted by Steven Oxner. Hello, Steven.
What's up, Steve?
Yeah, he's
I don't know
in
you, but I
Moscow
like you.
right now, conquering
Привет,
stages and yeah. So he was alone hosting this show and telling about his experience of living in Armenia, having an Armenian wife and a kid, and how it all happened that he's here, all the funny and weird stories, like cultural exchange thing. But it was a one-side monologue.
Mm-hmm.
So and then I'm not gonna tell the story of all the Eurovision and everything. So it happened to be that I joined Steven, and we started like a dialogue with this cultural exchange thing, making fun of each other because I used to be the exchange student in the U.S. and all these things. Also sharing
Can I
cultural.
interrupt you?
Yeah, sure.
No. Why are you doing this?
No. Okay.
I
so
mean, that's the story, and I appreciate the story, and I want to hear the story, but I want to know what is the real root purpose of why you're doing this.
it's because a lot of locals don't know how people from diaspora feel living here, or just English speakers who like workers of embassies or any kind of international organizations who happen to come to Armenia and live here, how they feel, what they want to tell about Armenia, what they want to share, what difficulties they had, how do they really make home here, or this doesn't work with them in Armenia, and things like this. We want to discover people. Okay, we know a lot of people who live here in Armenia, representatives of diaspora who have successful businesses, etc., etc., or and other foreigners, but we don't know who they are, what
Yes.
they really feel. So I was telling you the story because I wanted to share with you how this all came to a certain point where we understood that we need guests.
Yes.
We need guests, people
Real
like
people.
us
Mm.
who had experience living abroad and who need and want to share things like this with others. Share their experience, their emotions, their feelings.
So your audience
So-
is the local English speaking
Yes.
people to get an understanding of the diasporan experience.
Not because they're just English speakers, but because they
They
have
moved here.
stories to tell.
Mm.
Even if they didn't move, if they lived here for, like, I don't know, 2 months, or
Mhm.
they are traveling, it doesn't matter.
To know what it's like.
People who can share what it's like to feel homesick at home, or maybe they don't feel like this.
Mm.
Have they had this experience or not? What to learn more about ourselves eventually. This is the point.
Man, I love that. I really love that. I think that that is such a powerful thing, and that what you guys are, what your intention is coming to fruition, like it's manifesting, and it's very powerful.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good job.
Did I answer it fully, or Rena John?
For me, because I've just recently joined Ina on this show, a few months. It's been a few months now.
And actually, this shows, I'm sorry to interrupt you, that this show is working because it creates bigger and bigger network of people who learn about these things, who want
Yeah.
to share, who need to do this.
Mhm.
And it really works because we find each other, and we working on spreading this thing.
Yeah. I mean, I could say my intention or the aim was, as a person, I love sharing. And what I do is to share, because when I'm up on stage and I sing, that's how I feel, that I share. This was an opportunity for me to tell people how wonderful it is to share, to help them share. This is how I look at it. And of course, what Ina said is very important. I mean, me being part of the theme here, I mean, someone who has just moved to Armenia 4 years ago.
So you're like the diasporan that's also part of the show.
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
cool.
I know what this is all about, and I want people to kind of open up and tell others how beautiful or how difficult or how whatever it is.
Right, like knows like. So you have this sense of it.
For me, it was more of all of this, and then radio has always been interesting for me, so adding that on top of everything else. But the main reason was to kind of help. I mean, I kind of do that as a musician too, because I kind of try and collaborate with musicians who are just beginning, you know, and I kind of pull them up on stage and say, okay, you do this, try and do this.
Yeah, nurture them.
So I love doing this. So I can do this in a different way now.
Yeah.
Guys, this is the first time we're ending the show with us being interviewed, actually. But yeah, this is it, unfortunately.
I had a wonderful experience tonight with Aramazt.
It was
seriously.
great.
Oh,
I
thank
think
you.
with each guest we had a
it's
special and
likewise.
unique feeling of something new. So this is also something that
Oh,
brings
wow.
joy,
Yeah.
and
It's
this is
really
what
been
we
such a
really
pleasure.
enjoy. Hope that you enjoyed our evening together with us on the red couch.
I very much did. Yeah, I'm so destroyed.
Thanks for accepting the invitation, and hope to see you around Kuftas with Matsu.
Yeah, we're doing that, definitely.
This was Homesick at Home with Rina D
And Ina MK.
and Aramazt.
Thank you.
Good night.